So, what does the future of exercise really look like? I mean, way in the future. Could we possibly like take a pill and then that's our exercise? Like that would just blow my mind. I think that's so cool. Let's check it out. Stay tuned for more info. All right, everybody. Thank you for staying locked in to my channel. This is Real Science with Chris Neal. I've got another video for you. This one is super, super exciting, and it is all about a medication that has a horrible name, but on the contrary, like the benefits and everything about it is super, super cool. So this medication is called SLU-PP-332. How they came up with that name, I don't know, except for the SLU stands for St. Louis. It was originally designed at Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis. So let's dig in. To begin starting about any medication, we got to break it down to its root and what's really going on. What I'm going to do first is for everyone that's not ready to fully geek out on it, but just wants to hear the highlights, I'm going to start with that, and then the full geek out session is going to come after. So to begin with, this medication is in a brand new class. It is the king of this class of medications called an exercise mimetic. So what that means is that this medicine is designed, it is built, it is synthesized to mimic all of the effects of exercise inside your body from a chemical standpoint. I think that's really, really cool. You know, you might listen to me and say, "Oh, Chris, you're exaggerating, whatever. You know, you're just fluffing it up." And you know what? I'll just read straight from an article that is not known for exaggeration. This is the Journal of Renal Endocrinology. This is what they say, and this was back. This was in October of last year, so this is very recent. You know, let's see. This is what the article says, and I quote: "The drug, meaning SLU-PP-332, can potentially transform the future of fitness and can facilitate weight loss by stimulating the body's muscles during exercise. The mechanism of action of SLU-PP-332 is to activate ERRs, which are estrogen-related receptors." We're going to get into that in the Geek Out session a little further along, leading to increased energy expenditure, fatty acid oxidation, and decreased fat mass accumulation. So just that right there says it all for you. Like, that's huge. That's a really large statement for the Journal of Renal Endocrinology to just throw out there to the wind in a science art. Science is not known for exaggeration, generally speaking. So I found that in all of my research and in my own personal trial with the medication, I found it to be true. I think it's a big deal. We're really onto a big deal here. So, but that's basically what the medication is. It's an exercise mimetic. It starts to activate without going too deep into it, it activates and mimics an exercise response in your body, even if you're not working out. So the next logical question is, okay, well, what if I take it before I work out? Then it's even more. It's an enhancer of your physical performance, your metabolic expenditure, your mitochondrial efficiency, and fat metabolism along with that, and stimulating muscles. It doesn't just stimulate skeletal muscles like the muscles that we move and we use when we're lifting. It stimulates other muscles too, and it increases the efficiency of the use of other muscles too, in addition to cardiac muscle. So cardiac muscle, just like it sounds, is very, very important. It makes up your heart. So they're looking into this medication as being very cardioprotective and ways to reverse the signs of heart failure and heart issues. So in addition to kidneys, that's how this article or this information got to the Journal of Renal Endocrinology was because they're looking into its protective nature with kidneys as well. So it's fascinating. It's really, really impressive how it works. The medication itself, it is in a pill form. You can take it. I generally recommend twice a day, but because it doesn't last very long in your system, So this is the best way I can describe how it felt for me and for some of my patients that we've worked with it with. You know that feeling that you get if you go to the gym and you just hop on the treadmill and you're cold, you hop on the treadmill and you do a, 5 or 10 minute warm up on the treadmill, and then you get ready to go work out. Okay, that you feel a little bit warm, you're starting to perspire just a tiny bit, and you're like, okay, I'm feeling warm, I'm feeling ready to go. That's how it feels when you take the pill and you just sit down. You don't feel, it's not a pre-workout, you don't feel jittery, you don't feel caffeinated, it feels very natural. You just feel like you're warmed up, like you're ready to go, and that's basically how it feels. And then when you get into the performance of actually doing the exercise, you do have a boost, with that too. So the way it works, mechanically, it can go very easily, very safely with other weight loss tools. So we're already using it alongside of GLP-1s like your semaglutide, Ozempic, Wegovy, tirzepatide, retatrutide, like all of those. We've already started using it with that and found a lot of good benefit, a lot of big results with that, especially helping people break through plateaus and things of that nature. So it's probably the strongest plateau breaker I've found. I did a whole video on how to break through plateaus with GLP-1s, but this one came out after that video, so this one definitely I would put at the top of that list. As far as side effects go and other negative things, there has been no side effects reported, none in any research forums, even in minuscule amounts. There's just none as of right now. So it is safe. It is approved for compounding. For human consumption in the compounding pharmacy world. Please understand, and this is where a lot of media will throw people off. Please understand that there are several regulatory bodies of approval in the United States of America for pharmacies, for medications being made. The FDA is one of them. There's a lot of others too. And those regulatory bodies are all pretty much just as strict as one another, but the FDA, by nature, by its jurisdiction, it does not have any regulatory power they don't even glance or look at compounding pharmacies. That doesn't mean compounding pharmacies aren't safe. They're very safe, and they have very high standards they have to deal with. In many cases, higher than that of big pharma. But there are other regulatory bodies. So if someone tries to say, oh, well, that medication's not approved by the FDA. Okay, does it come from a compounding pharmacy? If the answer is yes, then the compounding pharmacies they're not looked at by the FDA. So that doesn't mean it's not safe or it's not regulated or it hasn't been looked at for safety and approval for those things. That's a different question altogether. So just a little side note, I've heard noise like that out there, and I always like to know the real science and know the real facts before I open my mouth about something. So that's the truth of the matter. So there's really you can start and stop. You don't have to build up. You're going to feel it as soon as you take your first pill. I mean, it's very, very simple. And so, and it's getting a lot of great response. So if you work out, your body goes through changes of efficiency, stimulating your muscles, stimulating your mitochondria inside your cells. There's a whole cascade of events that happen with exercise, and which is a great thing. That's why exercise is so important. There's really no medication stronger than exercise. But when you combine it with another medication that helps your body stimulate those exact same things, then you get like a double effect. So from a performance standpoint, it has increased endurance, in strength, and the like. So it's really worth checking out. I think we're really at the cusp of some amazing advances in medicine right now, and it's just an exciting time to be in the health and wellness space. So yeah, I'm trying to hold back my internal geek, because I really want to get to the geek out session, but that's about as short as I can make the basic part of the layman's term part of the SLU-PP-332. We got to come up with a better name. First off, let me pause. If you guys can come up with a more interesting name, please let me know. Put it in the comments. We'll just throw it out there and start calling it something. So far I've got Sloop, which is kind of weird, and my business partner John, he calls it Slut Pop. I don't know, but like there's that one's the most colorful, but it's funny. But if you guys can come up with anything that's better, please let me know. Exercise in a bottle is another one, but we need something a little shorter. All right, let's get into the fun stuff. Let's get into the geek out session. So, in order to understand how this medication works, I do this with every single one. We have to go back to the drawing board and figure out how the body works, and that's actually how this medication was invented, or how it was discovered or invented in the first place. So the way that our body, the way that we have found, the way we've discovered and learned about the body in regards to hormones and signaling, has been a very rudimentary type of method. We basically find the substance we call it the ligand. We as an example, we find like testosterone, for example. That's a hormone. That's a signal. We find that first, and then we try and follow it to see what it attaches to. Okay, and then we learn about what it has attached to. Okay, so because they're basically joined, they're together, they're both designed for the same lock and key purpose. Okay, and that's basically the method as to how we've discovered things for a long time. Now, with advances in technology and advances in laboratory technology and how we learn about things, it just blows open a whole new scale of information and learning. So with the new techniques of what's called reverse pharmacology, we've been able to discover all kinds of things. So almost everything you can boil down to on a cellular level. Okay, so on a cellular level, something happens different to the cell. The cell changes when it undergoes exercise. Okay, it's a lot of things change. So it's almost like in the United States in World War II. During wartime, everything changes. Like the patriotism goes up. Like people are much more efficient with the country is more efficient with their tools and their resources. Like everything changes. We're building more tanks. We're doing all kinds of things in the background. So that's basically how each cell responds. So the mitochondria, the energy producing part of the cell, it has to change in its metabolic efficiency, because it's going to need to crank out energy much more rapid, during exercise state. Obviously, it's going to need to burn things. The muscles are going to need to be ready to fire and ready to contract and do stuff. Like all kinds of factors change, all positive, by the way, all kinds of factors that also, as a result, require calories, meaning, you end up losing weight, from this. So, but if we track back that process, all of those processes in the cell come down to a genetic level. There are genes that are there, and genes, as we understand, genes are instruction manuals. Okay, now every cell in the body has all of your DNA. They have every single DNA for every single instruction manual to do everything in your entire body. But they just don't use all of those. Like the skeletal muscle will have instruction manuals on how to build hair, how to make your heart beat, how to digest food, how to do all that stuff. It just doesn't use it. It has a certain volume or certain section of the instruction manuals that it will use because it's a skeletal muscle. So now, digging in a little bit further, there are certain there are certain instruction manuals that are brought out at different times for different reasons. So if we're exercising, that's a new instruction manual. We got to bring that out. It's time to exercise, and all kinds of things happen. So there is so just the stimuli of exercise stimulates those genes, genetic activity, to switch on. And when that switches on, that's when the whole cascade of all this fun stuff happens. Okay? So and once all those things happen, then we get the results, right? So to track that back one more step, what turns on the genes? Okay, they were able to track back. Remember, this is reverse pharmacology. They were able to track back, and they found these proteins that are called estrogen-related receptors. Estrogen-related receptors, or ERRs. So the best way to think about ERRs are to forget about the term estrogen, because really the journal article explains it really well. And I can't really explain it better than this. Estrogen-related receptors are a group of proteins that play a central role in regulating metabolic genes and cellular energy metabolism. So they switch on these gene factors, and they have a big part to play in physiologic processes, metabolic pathways, glucose, fatty acid metabolism, all kinds of things. There's 3 different types. There's alpha, gamma, and beta that we know of so far, but the alpha one is the one that the SLU-PP-332 prefers. That's the one that's the primary one that it goes to. Okay, so that is the protein that is the on switch for specifically all of these exercise benefits and the metabolic pathways of everything that happens with exercise. Okay, so now that we know that, and that's the thing that's turned on by exercise. Now that we have that and we know what that is, how do we turn it on? How do we control how to turn it on ourselves without the exercise? How do we chemically turn it on? So that is how they discovered SLU-PP-332. They synthetically created a molecule. It's small. It's not very big. It's smaller than any peptide. I'll put it that way. It's about the size of a small it's actually smaller than pretty much all amino acids. It's really, really tiny. It doesn't have to be big. It has one specific job to do. It goes in and it turns that little sucker on, and then it leaves. It's not big enough or complicated or complex enough to really do anything else. And these kind of factors in the body, these little on and off switches, they're very much like keys. They are designed to be incredibly precise. Okay, so nobody wants to turn things on by accident, So in order to switch these things on, it has to fit perfectly, like a lock and key. So the reason why I describe that is because that right there is the reason why we haven't seen, and I suspect we probably won't see any side effects whatsoever with this thing, because it has to be precise. It's designed that way, and I just think that's fascinating. I love that. So yeah, and that's what SLU-PP-332 does. It goes in, it preferentially activates these proteins called ERRs, and that sets up the whole cascade event. Technically, SLU-PP-332 is considered an estrogen receptor-related orphan receptor agonist. Which means it activates, and the agonist part means it activates those ERRs. The orphan receptor means that the way we came about learning about this receptor, this protein, ERRs, the way we came about learning it was reverse. First, we found the receptor, and we still don't know what activates it besides just exercise. Like now we're trying to figure out where its home is, basically. So if we had gone the other way, like with testosterone, like I said, they're not orphans, they're already adopted. They already have something that, like, that we know activates it. In this case, because we did reverse pharmacology, at this point, it's considered an orphan receptor, which is very interesting. But yeah, so that is the SLU-PP-332. There's a lot of exciting news to come. There's a lot of research done in this whole field of exercise mimetics and activating and just how we can activate and stimulate our own genetic material. It is a huge advancement of unlocking potential in the human body. And this is one thing that I've been fascinated with, performance and advancing human potential for deep study for 20 years now. And I've learned so much about all of the medications that are out there and available to us today. And I've always been fascinated with the global idea that the best medications, the most effective, the safest, the strongest things out there are stuff that our bodies already make. We just haven't figured it out yet. And I think that is so cool. So this definitely falls into that category. I'm a huge fan, so check it out. If you wanted to talk about this more, you can definitely reach out to us at my medical clinic, team360health.com. I'd be more than happy to talk to you. We do offer this through our compounding pharmacy, so we're excited to be able to be on the front lines, on the pioneering, these kind of things. I love this stuff. So thank you very much for your time. If you like this kind of information, then please click like, subscribe, and share this with a friend. If you have any questions or there's anything else that you'd like for me to talk about, hit me up in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks a lot, guys. Stay happy, stay safe, stay healthy.